this go? Can I do that with freedom? All I care about is freedom.
You're under arrest.
That's fine. I've been there before. I'm not scared. I've been there before. This hurting my elbow. It's hurting my wrist. You're hurting me, Sheriff. You're hurting me, Sheriff. Why are you choking? I can't breathe. Why are you touching my leg? Why are you touching my leg? What? I can't breathe. This is George.
Finally, someone who's able to delay an entire flight, but at least provide some in-flight entertainment for everybody that's on the plane. I mean, yes, you could fly on a fancier airline and you'd get snacks and maybe a little bit more knee room, but I can assure you, you are not going to get this kind of performance on one of those fancier airlines. This is a Spirit flight, which is known as an ultra low-cost carrier. You have your low-cost carrier, which will be your JetBlue, your Southwest. Those are your low-cost carriers. And then you have an ultra low-cost carrier, which right now you're going to have like Frontier in the US, Frontier and Spirit. In Europe, it'd be like Ryanair. So you're going to have those ultra low-cost carriers where it's like you pay for literally everything. And what it does is it attracts people that are thinking, okay, great, for $40 I can fly somewhere across the country. And $40 is a lot cheaper than taking a bus or even a train. And what was funny is that everybody on the plane was obviously laughing. They were finding it entertaining because of just how dramatic she was being, including the officer. I'm sure of all the arrests that he's done on a plane, this has to be one of the funnier ones that everybody's going to go home and talk about. I think it's pretty safe to say we know why she wasn't going to remain on the flight. Anytime you're a disturbance to anybody, that's obviously going to be a problem. And obviously she was more interested in putting on a performance, which she did very well. Lots of faces, lots of screaming, I can't breathe, all kinds of stuff. She was putting on a very big performance, and I found it pretty entertaining, and so did the police officers, and I'm sure the people on the plane did. Some of these people are just being very difficult, and while she's being difficult, she's making it entertaining somehow. It's kind of strange, but if you're going to delay an entire flight, at least everybody is going to be talking to their neighbor from that entire flight. Normally you're on the flight, you sit down, you don't want to talk to anybody. As soon as you get off the plane, you're going to be talking to people about that. You're going to create a conversation piece, so from that aspect, pretty entertaining. The thing is that the flight crew made a very big mistake during this entire video. You can notice they're nowhere in the background here, but all of this is happening towards the back of the plane, which means what the pilot should have done is actually leave the flight deck and come back to the back of the plane, hang out in the galley and watch the show. I mean, that's something you want to see in person. I mean, the recordings, I'm sure, not nearly as good. Okay, so we know why she didn't make it on the flight. Let's see who's next.
So I'm on American Airlines, and I asked the stewardess to clean up the seat, and she said, clean it up yourself. So.
Oh, that's not what I said.
What'd you say? Who's going to clean it up?
Sorry, you asked for sandy wipes, and I said we don't have those anymore.
But who's going to clean it up?
To clean it up.
Okay. So I am cleaning it up.
At first when I saw this, I thought it was a joke. There was this trend on TikTok a while back where a husband and wife would be in the car together, and the girl would be recording herself, and she'd say, oh, I just found out today my husband wants a divorce and he wants to break up with me. And the husband goes, that's not what I said. And she goes, well, then what did you say? And the husband would say something like, I'm not going to, and say like, buy her something extravagant. Like, I'm not going to buy you a second Land Rover so you have two different Land Rovers so you don't have to drive the same one every day. And she goes, it's basically the same thing. I thought that's what this was because it was sounding like that was the direction. Like, that's not what I said. Okay, what did you say? It sounded exactly like that, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is real. But if you know that story, listen to what he says right here.
That's not what I said.
What'd you say?
Sir, you are a national treasure. Now, I don't think you meant anything by calling them stewardesses because at one point that is what they were called. They're called flight attendants now. Not really a big deal. I don't think you meant anything wrong by that. However, the flight attendants are there primarily for your safety. They are not there as a cleaning crew. They are not there to put your bags in the overhead. They're not there for that. They're there for your safety in the event of an accident or any type of emergency. They're there to help safely get everybody off the plane. There are cleaning crews that come on the plane to clean the seats. Now, while I agree with you 100%, that is gross to have other people's food. Some person who has no manners obviously couldn't get enough food in their mouth fast enough, and it left a big pile of food of some sort on the seat, and they didn't want to clean up after themselves. And that's because for some reason today, a lot of people don't have manners. But the person to direct that would be not the flight attendant, because she is not the cleaning crew of that airline. So that's something to know. But I do agree with you 100%. This is completely unacceptable that food should not be on the seat. So the cleaning crew obviously missed that, and what I would do in that circumstance is go to the flight attendant and say, ma'am, I think the cleaning crew missed something here on the seat. Do you have something that I can clean it off with? You're not talking about biohazard. Somebody didn't crap their pants on the seat and they're being asked to clean that up. You're talking about some crumbs from somebody. Somebody looks like they ate a bunch of food and it just fell in their lap and then onto the seat, and they didn't clean it up because they don't have any manners. That's not the same thing. So if you said to the flight attendant, ma'am, I think somebody left a bunch of food here on the seat, she would be like, oh, let me get you a napkin, or let me get you something to clean it up. Or she might even volunteer to wipe it off the seat for you. But instead, you chose to record her in a way that she may have not even known that you were doing it, and try to get clout by making her look bad. But she looked as classy as she could possibly be in this circumstance. You're trying to say, oh, she said this, and try to do this and record her so that you can call her out, instead of just being a gentleman and saying, like, excuse me, ma'am, I think there was something there. And then she would get you something so you could wipe it off the seat. Why are you doing that? This isn't a disgusting mess on here. And what you wanted to do was post something online in hopes that she would maybe get in trouble. Pilots are there to safely get you where you need to go. Flight attendants are there primarily for your safety. Yes, they do bring you drinks, they do other services for people, they will help you put your bags up, but they're not required to do that, and in a lot of cases they probably shouldn't, because if they get injured while you're putting your bag up by reaching their head over, because some people have heavy bags, something falls off, hits them in the face, they're not covered. So just something to be aware of. They're not helping you, not because they don't want to, but because if they hurt themselves, their airline, typically, I don't know this for every airline, but in some cases, the airlines will say, well, we weren't during work time. So if the door's closed and the plane is moving and then they get injured, that's something totally different. So that's a lot of times why the flight attendants don't want to help. It's not that they couldn't do it, they could, but if they get injured, then they're just out of luck. So when you're recording videos like this, secretly trying to get this lady in trouble, what you're actually doing is showing you have no class. This lady's just trying to do her job. All you could do is ask and be a gentleman and say, do you have something there? No reason to try to secretly record her and then call her out and post it and hope people are going to go like, yeah, you were the right one. No, that's dumb. Just be an adult about it. Wipe it off. Sit down. If it was something gross, I would agree with you. I wouldn't touch that either. But those are some crumbs. Grow up. You know that saying that's going around, F around and find out? I love that the pilots did this, because this person started yelling at the cabin crew 3 hours into the flight. So I'm guessing they were going across an ocean or some long flight like that, because otherwise you would just land at a nearby airport. So maybe they were leaving from JFK or something like that, and then going across the ocean, and then just had to turn around because you're obviously not going to land in the ocean. I love that they did that. This guy wanted to yell at flight crew, and I want to be really clear, I don't know that this was the case, but clearly something was going on with this guy, because when is the last time you were in the back of the plane and your plane landed and everybody let you get off the plane before they got off the plane? I've never seen that happen. I've even seen those situations where flight attendants say, hey, we got some people in the back of the plane, they got a connection, they got 25 minutes. Please, everybody, unless you have a tight connection, don't get out of your seats so these people can make their connection. And as soon as the plane lands and the seatbelt sign comes off, everyone's got a 20-minute connection. I don't know. I understand everybody wants to get off the plane, and I don't agree with people booking flights with a 20-minute connection. Like, that's bad planning on their part. Even with the plane delayed, I usually try to at least give myself an hour, because a lot of times the plane's going to be at least 20, 30 minutes delayed. It can easily happen. So I try to leave myself at least an hour. But there's a lot of people I meet, they're like, oh yeah, I booked a 35-minute connection. Like, why would you do that to yourself? Especially if you're going into a huge airport like Dallas. You got to ride a train and up an escalator, down an escalator. Like, it's just silly that people do that. But something was clearly going on because they let this guy get off. However, I found it a bit strange here. He's out talking in the terminal with random people. Obviously, he was removed from the flight, and then the people out here knew that there was something wrong, because they're obviously there recording what he's saying. But he's not in handcuffs. The police aren't around him, which just goes to show you that even if you cause an airline to spend probably $50,000 of extra jet fuel to turn around and drop you off because you can't behave, if that is what happened on this flight, that even with all of that, if you politely get off of the airplane and wait for law enforcement out there, they're not going to have to tackle you, wrestle you to the ground, and deplane everybody. However, it seems like people got off the plane for some reason because they're recording him. Most people in the terminal wouldn't be there just randomly recording and then be able to put this video together. So I don't know if they got everybody off the plane because the crew was timing out, or they obviously would have needed more fuel. So I don't know exactly how that all, it kind of is a weird video in that sense, but I'm glad people need to know that you can't just start yelling at flight crew and cabin crew in the middle of the flight and go like, what are you going to do now? Well, this is what's going to happen. You mess around with the crew, and if I'm a pilot and I hear somebody screaming at a flight attendant and we're like in the middle of the ocean, like, we're not going to go unless you're closer to the destination than you are from the departure end. But 3 hours, you're probably closer to the departure end. So turn around, come back and land. So that was the right call.
Is this the craziest someone has ever gone at an airport? The woman started smashing up Mexico City Airport after her booking allegedly went missing in the system. After going berserk, she tried to flee the terminal but was caught by police and taken into custody.
So that's a real life video of what I look like 6 hours into the flight when I've just gotten out of my rest and I'm over the middle of the ocean, and I found out some guy who was deadheading on my plane ate the peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I said that I wanted before we even got to the plane. Think I'm joking? That actually happened to me once. In seriousness, I can't figure out the rationale of someone doing this, especially at an airport while people are filming you. To me, it's similar to the person who gets really mad, loses their temper, and then in order to fix and rectify the problem, decides to slam their iPhone against the wall, breaking it into a million pieces. Okay, so now you have the bad thing that happened and you're upset about that bad thing, and then now you also have to spend $1,000 on a new phone. That's essentially what you're doing. There's no logic in it, and it makes no sense to me, but it seems like more and more people are just going straight off of emotions and no more common sense. And I don't know if that it's a new thing that people are doing this, or it's just that now everybody's recording this and older people are having temper tantrums like a 5-year-old in the airport who doesn't get their snacks. Because they're saying that her booking was lost. Now, I probably fly on over 100 commercial flights a year. Going to work, going from work as a passenger, flying somewhere to get a plane that's somewhere, or a crew got sick and they needed a replacement pilot. Like, I've done all of that stuff, so probably safely 100 flights in a year. I've never had a booking lost. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's also possible that she incorrectly booked it or didn't book it at all, and so she didn't have the ticket in there like she thought she would. But I don't understand how them not having a ticket for you and you now destroying their entire ticket counter is going to result like, oh, well, hold on. Are you breaking all of our equipment? Yeah, okay. We don't want that. Let us go ahead and get you onto an aircraft with a bunch of other people, because clearly you have the stability to be there with a bunch of other people and behave properly in public. Yes, let's put you in flight. And I've had people be rude to me. I just, not that long ago, was in Germany. I'd operated a flight into Germany, and I had to catch a deadhead on a commercial aircraft to Amsterdam. And I'm walking through the airport in Germany, and the van dropped us off. The rest of the crew was going to the hotel. They dropped me off, and I walked in. And I've never been to that airport. I was worried about my flight. I wasn't looking at the overall terminal layout. So I walked in, and the first gate that I saw there was a Lufthansa gate. There was a lady standing in the first class area of the Lufthansa thing, and I walked up to her and I said, excuse me, ma'am. Now, I'm in uniform, right? So she knows that I work at the airport. I said, excuse me, ma'am. I'm trying to find KLM. KLM is the Royal Dutch Airline. I was flying to Amsterdam. So I said, I'm trying to find KLM. And she goes, I don't work for KLM. And then she literally turned around and walked away. Now, I could have jumped over the counter. I could have started breaking all of her stuff, but that is not going to accomplish the goal of what I want, is get safely on the airplane. Now, it just so happened KLM was literally on the ticket counter right around the corner from her. So I just walked a little bit further down and looked, and I saw KLM there, but she could have just said, it's right behind me. But she chose to be what I think is extremely rude. You know, I'm a crew member, I'm not there, or you know what I mean? Like, clearly I'm there working. You could have just said, I'm right back there, but she chose to say that to me, which I thought was really unnecessary. But that's me in uniform. I'm sure she would have treated me the same way if I was a passenger. Maybe she didn't like the fact that I didn't speak German. I don't really know. But my point is that even with her being rude to me in that circumstance, doesn't gain me anything by being rude or doing something like this, throwing everything around from behind her ticket counter, because that is definitely not going to result in anything that I want. You have to be able to control your emotions. Unless the deadheader eats your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which you told them not to do before you get on the flight, then that's totally acceptable. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.